and welcome to episode 2 of Mythbechattin. I remain Dan Barber.
And I am arguably still Connor Hoffman.
Something has changed about me, but I am still Joe.
Rest in peace,
I
the
contest
long-haired
that.
Sopchak. We are here today to discuss Song 2 from Tales from the Unseelie Court, Omen of Embers, which befittingly is the second song from the album. So I guess kicking us off in terms of the origins on this one, Connor, this started as a piece that you wrote, which was called Grass as its placeholder title, as I recall.
Yep, it was. I wrote most of it in my head while I was mowing the lawn. My placeholder titles are usually not particularly interesting. Yeah, this one I think I would probably count as kind of part of our like second era of songwriting for the album, if you could say that. Mm-hmm. Kind of that long middle period where we were all kind of doing separate work and extremely backburnering most of this project.
Accurate.
But it just popped into my head mostly fully formed. This is a weird one in that it did mostly just the melody came and the chords came and somehow it all stayed in there long enough for me to write it down. Basically from the beginning of the song. But yeah, this is definitely like one of the most power metal forward songs on the album. It opens with that very heroic just natural minor theme going from the 1 to the 6, and it
fuzzy
just sits there. Yeah,
sparkly synth arpeggios cranking through the background. Yeah
that was a late addition actually. That was like that was kind of an audible on the album, right? That we added those the synth parts. I mean, we're kind of we're jumping the gun a little bit, but that was a fun the point where we were producing this one was right after we had finished the Heedless Corby's release, right? Yes, that's the order we did things in.
Yeah.
And I just sort of had the thought, there was this big open intro where it's just the guitar holding chords over a constant double bass drum beat. And Joe had gone pretty sparse with the orchestral part there. I had kind of imagined that being a much bigger orchestral section. And I was playing with some synth stuff and it popped into my head like, what if we leaned a little more in a synth direction here? And so I mocked up a few lines of just basic keyboard harmonies there and sent them off to Joe as ideas. And I feel like within like an hour or so, he had 3 more synth tracks sent back to me of various melody and contrapuntal lines, and then the intro ended up very lush.
Yeah, so I mean, what I ended up going with for that section was I was very into I was very into the George Lucas it's like poetry, it rhymes school of thought. So what the synth lines are doing there is primarily I mean, you have one main synth line that's doing sort of just like the chorus melody underneath it. You have the synth arpeggio, which is just kind of doing a slightly adapted version of what the flute is doing in the outro, which is something that you wrote in the original draft of the song when you sent it over.
Oh shit, I did, didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Proud about that.
Yeah, but so I was just sort of like, all right, so we can sort of like bookend that. And then I had already written the English horn part in the outro, and that's what the third synth line in the intro is doing, is just sort of that very, I thought I was being poetic, and I hope people agree with me.
I think this was one where I actually mostly wrote a lot of the vocal melodies too. With the primary exception, if I recall correctly, being that you changed the chorus melody to be something much better for vocals. And you can hear shades of what my initial melody was actually in the lead guitar part in the beginning, and then you actually draw on that melodic idea more for the little half chorus towards the end before it does the key change into D minor. But ultimately it was much too many notes for, I mean, you know, I'm not a vocalist. I played the notes on the guitar, and then Dan's like, hey, how about this would sound better if a person sang
tone
it.
it down. Tone it down.
Look. Guitars have strings, singers have chords. Those are synonyms. Is what those are. One should be able to do the other. I'm with Connor on this.
Guitars have chords too. I don't know what the big deal is.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, I'm really pleased with how the vocal melodies turned out on this one. It was a fun one too, just in terms of like kind of feeling out where my voice was at. I've gone through a lot of vocal progression over the past 10 years, and like periods where my voice was like not doing as well, and then like kind of building it back up and building good technique. And in particular, the vocal jump into the last fly was a fun kind of like, I think I can hit this moment, and then I was like, oh yeah. And it was very gratifying to pull off because it's in head voice, not in falsetto.
I think
it's about the highest I can do.
I love the note you hit there too, because it's I should have reviewed this, but I remember looking at this when I was mixing it. Yeah, it's the seventh of the chord that it's going to, right? Yeah, because we're going back into C sharp minor at that point.
Yeah.
I remember when you sent me your vocal stems for that. And I was listening back to them and just kind of noodling along on guitar. And when you hit that key change, I was initially like, what? That's not one of the chord tones. What note did he go to there? But it works so well there. I'm sorry, jazz people. It is a chord tone.
First time I was thinking like, what does Dan think is happening here? And then I like listened like two more times, and I'm just like, oh no, he knows what's happening. It's
very
here.
good. Yeah, it sounds because then it walks down to the. I think it walks down to the fifth, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a really cool moment, and I think the vocals came out. So this is probably personally one of my favorite vocal performances on the album. There's some great little inflections in that last chorus that really get me every time I listen back to it. I think by this point in the process, we really had a lot of the game figured out, so to speak. Like we were much more like operating on a level that worked for us, I think.
Absolutely.
For all of us.
Because this was recorded as sort of the third, as part of the third suite of songs.
Yeah.
Not counting Maui.
Originally released.
Time comes for us all.
I'm cutting that.
But I will also mention I do think this has a pretty dope guitar solo.
I wrote most of this guitar part quite a while ago and had been practicing it for a while. And there were parts of this song that had always been sort of in that realm of like, this sounds cool, but I can't really play this. And it was definitely a very exciting feeling to be done recording this song.
That is the pocket in which I love writing all of my music, not intentionally. It just seems to mostly
It's
be
how it
like,
happens.
yeah.
When it's just slightly exceeding your grasp.
It's
The
just like,
entire time I've been playing guitar, that's how it's been. Like, I feel like I'm always, whatever I'm interested in is just a little bit harder than what I can actually pull off.
I tremble
It's
at
like
the
playing
thought of
Dark
what your
Souls, though.
solos will sound like in 10 years.
Oh, God.
It's like playing Dark Souls, though. Like, it makes it all the more satisfying when you kill that boss.
It's true. It's true.
Moving on to the topic of subject matter for this one. This has one of my favorite inspiration stories, just because of, like, how kind of unmetal and, like, nostalgic it is. Like, obviously, the story of Merlin and the Dragons is fairly metal, but the thing that kind of really infused the influence in this that caused me to recall it was I, as a kid, and I found out later Connor as a kid, had both watched a PBS show called Long Ago and Far Away, hosted by James Earl Jones, which came out in the 90s, I think.
Are you sure
97.
you're not thinking of the title crawl of Star Wars?
I am.
Wait, hang on. I don't want to contradict you, but I actually didn't see the show. I was thinking of the books by I forget the name of the author, but
it's a story from Jane Yolen, who did some other dope Arthurian shit,
yes,
among other things. And it's illustrated by Alan Lee, who is fucking badass and has done a ton of Tolkien illustration and consulted on Lord of the Rings for a lot of the like design elements. Like, a lot of his illustrations were used for reference, and then he would actually draw for the movie too.
Oh, that's sick.
Concept art.
See, I was a child and didn't yet have an understanding that works of art had authors, so I didn't remember that.
Of course. But the Long Ago and Far Away version I watched a ton as a kid. It's narrated by Kevin Kline of A Fish Called Wanda and Pirates of Penzance, etc. And it does kind of like jazz up the original legend a little bit in ways that I think objectively make it better and more metal in the original legend. So the broad strokes of Merlin and the Dragons, Merlin is like Kid Merlin in this, and Vortigern, the evil tyrant of the town he is living in, is kind of trying to construct this huge tower, and it keeps collapsing, and they basically are trying to figure out what is causing the towers to collapse. He asks his like court magicians, basically, and they say he needs to find a motherless boy, and that they will like be able to reveal the secret after like he spills his blood. And as I recall, that's fairly accurate to the legend. And then essentially Emrys, who is like Kid Merlin, determines that what is causing the towers to collapse is these dragons underneath where he's trying to build the tower are in eggs underneath it and are causing these little like earthquakes that are bringing down the towers. And then in the OG version, it's two like dog-sized little dragons. One thing that I find interesting that also looking for art for the single really revealed is that medieval depictions of dragons suck and are not cool or metal, and they all kind of look like dogs and just very small. Like, not your like if you're looking for a big badass like D&D dragon, you will not get it in medieval art.
You need to go to the 1970s for that.
Yeah, 1970s, full of really good dragon art. But less so prior. So that was interesting, but yeah, so in the Jane Yolen / Long Ago and Far Away version, you get these huge kind of, as one would expect and desire them to be nowadays, like cool fantasy dragons, and they have like a big epic aerial fight. And then in the book / show version, the white dragon is victorious. In the song and in the original myth, if I remember correctly, the red dragon is victorious. And I specifically decided to make that decision because I felt like it was sort of metaphorically stronger because of the whole red dragon of Wales concept, even though the red dragon of Wales is not this dragon.
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that was kind of the main sort of creative license we took off of the subject material, was sort of playing up that metaphorical connection between the dragon and sort of like Welsh independence, so to speak. That was sort of an angle that we were playing with there in terms of the I guess I don't want to give too much away. It's a theme that we're interested in.
Yes. Which you may hear about more in the future, perhaps. But yeah, it was a really fun one to write. It came together relatively quickly after I had major writer's block initially as part of a years-long writer's block that also impacted writing the lyrics for this song and the other 3 songs in this suite of Connor tracks originally. But then at a certain point, they just started coming like that, and this was among them, and really pleased with how it came out. They were a joy to write lyrics for.
It's a blast to play, too. A lot of fun riffs in this one. Oh, yeah. This is maybe us at our most, like, kind of Camelot-esque, I think, is what the verse riff kind of gives me a little bit.
Yeah, this is the one that I had the most fun.
Man, I hadn't thought about that.
This is the one that I had probably the most fun, like, practicing and recording, because since Connor, as is basically typical on the album, wrote all of the bass parts, most of the songs I'm usually like, fucking, why? No, my hands don't, that's not and just being mad at Connor the entire time. But on this one, it was just sort of like, oh, this verse riff just actually has like a solid groove to it. Like, I can just sort of hammer it out. Like, the bridge bass part in the sort of like the more mellowy, jazzy section is a lot more just like, I'm just sort of screwing around on bass, but like not screwing around in a careless way, but just we're playing around with hello cat.
Celine cameo.
Yes. But just like, you know, just good idiomatic low key bass playing, and just a whole thing was a blast to learn and record. Unlike the next song, which I have so many different thoughts about when it comes to learning how to play the bass part and whether or not that was fun. But
it's really
one of my favorites.
Between these two, like, there is a real a lot of the time when we're talking about the songs that I wrote, like this one, generally I'm really kind of starting from a riff, and it was different that in this particular case, I don't know that it was the vocal idea that came to my mind first, but it was something much closer to that. And so a lot of the stuff that I was like throwing down on paper was much less guitar focused when I was writing it initially, and that kind of let me you know, for a lot of songs on this album, I feel like there was a whittling away process of starting with a very unnecessarily noodly guitar part and sort of chiseling out the bits that were unnecessary. Whereas this one, like, it kind of just came out this way.
This is the only guitar profile I think that you sent me that has just 2 bars of nothing in it and just the annotation like orchestral swell or something ? And I was just like, I can do something with that. Let's go.
This was really the whole way through. This was a real blast to write, to practice, to record, with the exception of that annoying lead guitar part right after the solo that took ages, but I'm glad that it came out the way it did.
Oh, the like pedal picked bit?
Yeah, that one was the real pain, but
I bet. Oh man.
There's also,
and yeah, a joy to sing too.
Yes.
It right in my sweet spot range wise, and just had a ton of fun on this one.
Yeah, and honestly, it was an absolute blast to do the orchestral arranging for it too, because this one, I mean, I think you originally like sent us this tab in like 2017 or 2018 or something, and I, in classic me form, didn't look at it until 2020 really. And it was like in March or April when I suddenly found myself with a lot more free time on my hands, just sort of like took a crack at let's like really go into this. Let's get a little bit more extra with how many, parts I'm going to add onto this. And Connor said orchestral swell. Fuck it. 2 violin sections. Let's go. And
glorious.
Hell yeah.
It was sort of the first one that, like, after I was done, with my first pass at arranging it, I was just like, oh, this actually, like, this sort of, like, brought this project as a whole, like, back into my, like, sort of focus as, like, oh, this is actually good. We should keep working on this. I should do anything on these tracks that Connor sends us every 2 years. Literally ever. Like...
Yeah, and in the recording process, when this one got done, it felt like a real, like, confidence booster with just like, oh man, we got something here. So it was really fun to get that one out in the world.
Yeah. Also, just timeline wise, there's a little bonus 8-string guitar on this one, just because I had recently gotten that and discovered that a low B flat would be helpful for one part. So
when is it?
Keep your ears out. Well, that would spoil the surprise for the listener.
Oh man, you'll have to tell me after. We do aspire to
Don't
be the
tell him,
genttiest
Connor.
folk / power metal band.
I mean, I guess I guess the hint is that the song is mostly in C sharp minor, and I just said that I needed a low B flat, so that limits the times in which that note would be applicable. But yes,
it's true. That was Omen of Embers. But before we go for tonight, folks, I did want to ask Connor, what have you been listening to lately?
Not a ton, but I have been in a big Vector mood, the Haken album Vector. I've been kind of revisiting that and trying to learn some of the riffs from Puzzle Box because that's a very fun song. And also was recently listening through the Clint Mansell soundtrack for the film She Will, which is a film that I have not seen and know nothing about, but it is a very striking soundtrack with some excellent sound design. So would recommend that. Cannot comment on the film.
I've been listening to a halfway decent amount of Baby No Money and Young Gravy, as well as Chopin.
Fucking love you, Joe.
Chopin is so good. The piano is so...
Chopin is good. Well, I'm glad to be once again put in the position of my musical listening taste being at least ever so slightly more metal than Joe. I'll always have that to hang my hat upon. Because otherwise, I'll be forced to say that my main musical thing since last episode is that I've been really getting into Father John Misty. It's not super metal.
More metal than Baby No Money.
But also, the album Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii, which is great.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then also the Viagra Boys I've finally been getting into after having them recommended to me a lot. I've also been getting into Synergy lately, which has been fun. I listened to them a bit back in the day, but it was Alexi Laiho's band with Marco Hietala played bass in it.
Really?
Out of Nightwish, Riplatvala, who also played guitars in Children of Bodom, and then Kimberly Goss, who was Alexi Laiho's wife, did lead vocals for it, and they're just super fun. If you like power metal and you like Children of Bodom, and you don't mind the production being slightly dated, it's super fun. Also contributes to the catalog of which I am very fond of power metal ABBA covers. In this case, they have a cover of Gimme Gimme Gimme, in parentheses, A Man After Midnight. Another good one on that front is the Ed Guy cover of Lay All Your Love on Me. If you're looking to collect these, if you find others, recommend them in the comments. But otherwise, I think that's it, and we can call this a night. I have been Dan Barber.
I have been Connor Hoffman.
In lieu of making you sit there for an uncomfortably long time wondering if I've had a stroke, I will simply allow you to assign the name of your choice to me.
And we have been Mythbechattin. Good night!
Yeah, we don't need me on record saying that Young Gravy epitomizes my feelings towards Chopin's piano music.
Maybe we don't need it, but like I'm looking at my Reaper session and I see that I have it on record, so...
Indeed!
Fuck!
You know.
It's a great thing that this band is breaking up at the end of this call.